Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Invigorate Math Instruction with Contextualized Resources, presented by Amber Fornasari. If you want to welcome Amber today, so you can say hello in the chat box, let us know where you're calling in from. If you have questions during the presentations, feel free to submit them in the Q&A section. And with that, I will turn it over to Amber.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Amber Fornasari. Thanks, James, for that introduction. And welcome to Invigorate Math Instruction with Contextualized Math Resources. Thank you for all the shout outs in the chat. I really appreciate those, and I hope to continue those. I see some familiar faces from Illinois, but I also see people from all over the country, which is great, and I'm so happy to bring you this content. Again, my name is Amber Fornasari. I'm an educational training specialist at the Central Illinois Adult Education Service Center. We service the entire state in ABE, ASC, and ESL professional development. And I've been in that position for about 3 years. I also am an adjunct faculty member in adult education with our students every day, every semester at Elgin Community College, which is in the northern part of the state of Illinois. I'm about an hour to an hour and a half outside of Chicago. Many people know where Chicago is. I'm so happy that you're all here with me. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I have so much to share with you today, and so I want to jump right in. This is an interactive session, so I know that some of you are in the middle of a snowstorm. If you're on the East Coast, I feel you. We get snow in Chicago. If you are not on the East Coast, just say a little prayer, say thank you. I don't have 3 feet of snow today, right? 2 little plugs here. I promise I'm not going to hawk my wares too much today, but excellenceinadulted.com is the website that our center runs out of. And so if let's try that again. I just realized I was not sharing my screen. Sorry about that, guys. So Excellence in Adult Ed is the website that I help manage, as well as ICCB, our funder, Illinois Community College Board, is whom we partner with to develop the PD across the state of Illinois. And I have another little plug here. If you want to know anything about Illinois PD, you can go to excellenceinadulted.com. And the Adult Numeracy Network, I know I've probably got some people in the chat. Shout out to all of my ANN members. If you are teaching math at all in the state or in the country, and you are into math and numeracy and helping our adult learners learn math and numeracy, then you need to be a member of this organization. It's a phenomenal organization. It's an affiliate of COABE, and their website is also on my screen so you can see it. Become a member, check it out today. We're a great group of people that have a lot to offer for our adult ed students. And so make sure you check out Ann today or tomorrow or over your break or whenever you feel the need to service our numeracy students. All of the resources for my presentation today are available at this link. And there will also be a PDF slide of this slide deck sent out in an email after the presentation today. So you'll have a copy of my slides, as well as this link is live and I add things to it all the time. It's actually a link to a Padlet, if you're familiar with the technology Padlet, and it houses all of the links plus more in regards to all of the things I'm going to show you today. So please feel free to access that and use what is up there. And if you need that, again, I'd be happy to share it, but it'll also be in the slide deck that you receive after the webinar today. All right, does this look familiar to anyone? My office is clean, so this is not what my office looks like right now. Feel free to tell me in the chat. Have you ever been has your office looked like this? Welcome. This is, maybe my books didn't always look like this, but this is a place where I call Worksheet Land. And if you have ever taught math, we tend to get stuck in Worksheet Land. And so I think of it kind of as the place where I go when I'm not quite too sure what to do. I pull from Worksheet Land, right? You guys are making me laugh in the chat. I think I'm going to have to pull it aside just so I can focus here. But have you ever been to Worksheet Land? Have you ever been stuck in that closet with your office, just pulling sheets out, hoping that something works for your students? The premise of my presentation today is to give you more resources to pull from that aren't necessarily worksheets. All right, so that's kind of our premise for today. Here's our objectives. We always want to start out with what are you going to learn today? I would like you to determine be able to determine math resources that are standards aligned. In Illinois, we have a heavy focus on standards-based instruction. And so I found that through my own teaching of adult ed students, as well as my colleagues' teaching of adult ed students, they were having trouble they were grappling with this idea of connecting resources that they loved and found to standards and how to do that. So part of my presentation is on that today. The other thing is that we're going to explore 5 math resources and their potential uses in the classroom. So today we're going to kind of I need you to take out your teacher hat and put that on, and then also take your student hat put on, and we're going to flip-flop between the two. So if you are ready to engage and participate as a student, I would love that. If you are much rather a person to sit back and listen, I'm fine with that too. So please feel free to engage in our presentation today as a student or a teacher. I will try to answer your questions if you have any. A few notes about the resources that I will be presenting to you today. Number one, they're all free. So you don't have to ask that question. They are all free or have a common license on the internet. There are OERs, open education resources, so anyone can pull from them. Number two, these are not my resources. I did not develop these. Please do not give me credit for them. As a matter of fact, in the end of my slide deck at the very end are all the references to all these great things that people have already put together. What I'm here today to show you is how you can use them in your adult education classroom, how I have used them in my adult education classroom, and what are some best practices so that we can be using these resources to their fullest potential and contextualize learning for our adults. We know that contextualization is a big part of andragogy and how we teach our adult ed students. And these are all different resources you can use in order to contribute to contextualized math. So let's talk a little bit about standards for a second. I promise this will be the most boring part of my presentation, but yet very important. It's simpler than you think. And I will say that I'm going to shout out to Jen Schreier here in Illinois. She helped me put this together because she's another instructor in Illinois. She found that it was so hard for especially math instructors, and even more so for adult ed instructors that maybe aren't math inclined, to figure out, what do these standards mean? What does this mean? I'm supposed to just teach them exponents? So up here is an example of a college and career readiness standard, and that's what I'm going to refer to because that's what most states have adopted throughout the nation. This happens to be expressions and equations. And Heidi, I see you in the chat. Keep your open mind, and I will get to what you can use in the prison. Keep an open mind. This is the domain of expressions and equations. Apply and extend previous understandings of arithmetic to algebraic expressions. If you look at this particular standard, write and evaluate numerical expressions involving whole number exponents. If you're at all familiar with the math standards, sometimes when you read them, you have to do that reading strategy where you read it 3 times before you even understand the words. And then, especially if you're not math inclined, you have to go back and you have to see an example. And what does that mean before you can even approach teaching it with your students? This can be easier than you think it is. Here's an example of this. Understand a fraction 1 over b as the quantity formed by one part when a whole is partitioned into b equal parts. Understand a fraction a over b as the quantity formed by the parts of size 1 over b. Sounds like plain old English to me, right? There's my sarcastic comment for you today. This is a standard that many instructors have come to me and go, I don't even know what that means. And one of the strategies I want to present to you today, as you are looking for math resources to use that are standards aligned to what our students need to know to succeed, is to use a resource that actually is a worksheet. Don't tell. Shh. This resource, this might look familiar to some of you. This is called commoncoresheets.com. I am not recommending that you necessarily use it to give your students worksheets. I'm recommending that you use it to better understand the standards that you're supposed to be teaching. For example, this code right over here, 3NF1, is a Common Core code. The CCR standards, the Common Core standards were used to help develop the college and career readiness standards. So there's high alignment between this. Common Core Sheets has great visuals. Thank you, Rebecca, because that's exactly my point here. They have great visuals of what that standard looks like in practice. What should the student be able to do when they have mastered that standard? This is such a great resource for teachers. It can be a good resource for students, but if you're trying to get out of worksheet land, I don't want to show you another worksheet, okay? How can we take what we know from the standards and use something beyond a worksheet? That's what I'm here to tell you about today. Let's broaden our horizons. One of the things that I'm going to do today is show you a couple different resources. And actually, before I get on to this first resource, I'm going to exit my presenter mode because I want to use a specific tool with you today. So if you are willing and you want to engage as a student in this presentation today, I'm going to use, it is an add-on to Google Slides. So I'm presenting in Google Slides today. Here's your teacher hat for you. There's an add-on called Pear Deck, and Pear Deck has gotten exponentially popular recently because of our transition to virtual learning. But I've been using Pear Deck for about 2 years in my classroom now, and my students love it. My students love it. And even now in the virtual setting, I'm tweaking my presentations a little bit so that we can use Pear Deck in a virtual setting as well. So you might not be able to use this, especially those of you in a prison type setting, but it is a high engagement tool. So here it is. I'm going to open my Pear Deck. What it is kind of an alternative presenter mode. So if you've ever presented a slideshow, it's an interactive presentation mode. And so this is one of the resources. I want to point this out because many of us are teaching virtually now, including myself, that they have these two modes, self-paced student activity and instructor-paced. So we're going to use instructor-paced because I'm your instructor for today. But student-paced activity, you can actually take a presentation with all of these interactive features and make it available with the interactivity outside of your live presentation. So for instance, you could allow the students into it and be able to still interact, but not necessarily live. So keep that in your back pocket for your virtual classes. All right, instructor-paced activity, here's what you want to do. If you have your smartphone accessible and you're willing to participate, you want to go to joinpd.com. Joinpd.com. If you have two screens and you can toggle between, you can try that too. And there's a code up here. This code says NUYUKN. And they even give you a mnemonic. How catchy is this? New umbrellas yearly underwhelm keen ninjas. Oh, 24 of you have had success. Woo! Oh, sorry if I just yelled in your ear. Sorry, I'm just a little excited. So I'm going to just give you a second to get in. That number keeps going up. That's awesome. This is a way for students to get into your presentation and interact with it. And the cool thing is that even if once I move from this screen, this code is still going to be available. So if you're still in that process of getting on, that's okay. All right. So don't feel like you've missed the boat because your students can join at any time. So if you have students like mine that come in a little late, they can still get in on this interactivity and engagement. You don't have to go through you can join at any time. All right. So I'm going to start the class. And here's how this goes. We've got almost 100 people in here. You see this little code up at the top right? There it is. So they can go to joinpd.com. Now, it started at the beginning of my presentation. So I'm going to flip through to where I was, past Worksheet Land, because we're getting out of Worksheet Land. And you notice that on your device, as I flip through the slides, it should be changing on your end as well. And that's because we're in a live presentation mode. So the first non-teacher tool, I guess, the first math tool that I'm going to give you is called What's Going On in This Graph. Now, this is put out by the New York Times. It's a free resource. It's also an interactive resource in itself. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how to or model to you a way to use it in your classroom by using a technique called notice and wonder. And if I see some of my fellow math people out there, notice and wonder, it's the big trendy thing we do in math education now. And it's such a great way to start your students and get them engaged right from the beginning. So these two questions I'm going to pose to you in just a minute through Pear Deck, through my presentation. What do you notice and what do you wonder? And we're going to do those separately. So notice, I always explain to my students, is an observation. It's something generally that you see. The code is up in the top right of my screen, N-U-Y-U-K-N. What do you wonder is a question or of curiosity. So here is a graph. I'd like you to just take, I'm gonna stop talking in a second, and I want you to just take this graph in and think about, what do you notice? Don't put it in the chat yet. Look at my screen, look at the note, look at the graph, think about what you see. Okay, so here's those of you using this Pear Deck add-on thing on your phone, this is your time. You should see this screen. Those of you that are not using Pear Deck, you opted out, you can put your observation in the chat. I'm all about flexibility. I don't want to exclude anyone. So what did you notice about that graph? What did you notice about that graph? Thank you, John. Oh, do you see down here in the bottom of my screen, 86 of 140 responses. Now watch this. This is what Pear Deck can do for your presentations here. Everyone that's live on this webinar that opted in to use Pear Deck, these are their comments. Decrease usage starting in 2015. Tobacco is going up in the direct correlation to e-cigarettes. Students that started using e-cigs are most likely to become a user of other products in high school. Whoa, I don't know if that's an observation or if that's a critical thinker there. This data is about smoking habits of young people. Yes, 2 colors, 2 types of lines. That's my students right there. That one, 2 colors, 2 types of lines, orange and blue. Yep. Disparity, trend of tobacco products are increasing. Consumption is higher. Yes, yes, yes. Now, there's your student brain on, right? I want you to take your student hat off and put your teacher hat on for a second here. Would your students have the same observations that you would? And you probably all shouted now. No. Ready? Let's all shout it out together. I'm not going to shout because it'll hurt your ears. No, right? No. You know what my students often say when they see a graph? Here, I'm going to hide my responses and go back to the graph. They would say, I see 4 lines. I see dots. I see 2 colors. I see tobacco. I see e-cigarettes. Some of them would say, I see the lines going up, so that makes me think it's going up. Do they use words like increase? Not all of them. Some might. I want to give our students a little credit. I do have students, but generally our adult education students, their observations they make are on a very surface level. Right? On a surface level. We want to increase their critical thinking skills because not only is that important in life, right? But that is also vital to our math practices or our problem solving skills. We need to be able to notice and wonder things in our world in order to solve problems effectively and not just math problems. But if we can get them to solve other problems, we can correlate that to solving math problems. So, okay, teacher hat off, put your student hat back on. I've got this screen up. I want you to ask me a question about this graph. Yeah, what does happen if you're colorblind, Thomas? For sure. A student might only notice that they're gray or they're black or that there are lines. So I want you to tell me, what do you wonder? Oh, thanks, Kate, your librarian hat. Your librarian hat. Yeah, what source is it from? The source was on the bottom, the New York Times, but also part of the other. Oh yeah, Pear Deck can be used with just about any classroom, those of you in the chat. Yes, students use graphs in science, social studies. They're in all of our nonfiction texts. Yes. So what are your questions about that graph? Let's look at what some other people are saying. Oh, I love it. Why does it go up between 2017 and 2018? I wonder what happened in 2015. What do the dots mean? Why peak in 2015 and then a drop off? Where did the data come from? Thank you. A critical thinking question our students need to ask. Why would anyone smoke e-cigs? Yeah, for sure. When did they become available? Oh, there's a question. I wonder what the test question was for this. Yeah, how was that question phrased? So you can see how this can be a really interactive tool for not only notice and wonder, but lots of other engagement opportunities here. So I'm going to hide these responses. And I want to show you another example, because what I love about the New York Times, what's going on in this graph, is that they don't all look like the graphs that we see in mathematics textbooks. Sometimes they are a graphical representation of data in a more creative way. So this is another example of music consumption by genre. And when I showed this to my students, they immediately latched on because it was something that all of them could identify with and immediately say, oh yeah, I listen to music. And and many of them make kind of ancillary comments like Rob in the chat. What? No jazz? Yeah, exactly. Or who listens to country, right? You hear that and you immediately get this engaged response to your instruction. Yeah, no classical either. You're right. Again, this is musical consumption by genre, including streaming and then traditional sales only. And if we were to do the notice and wonder again, I'm sure you'd have lots of questions, because this one sparks a lot more questions for me than it does notice for me. Okay, so what I love again about what's going on in this graph is that it's free, but also the variance in graphs that they use. Okay. And what I'd like to say is that all of the different graphical representations are on the New York Times website. When they say what's going on in this graph, they are all great representations of what our students see in the news, on billboards, in whatever media they are looking at. They see graphical representation of data. And our job as math instructors is to make sure that they are interpreting that data with a critical eye. And like my librarian friend in the chat said, what is the source of this data? Where is this coming from? And you guys are all asking great questions. Is it international or is it just the US? Why isn't there opera? Why isn't there classical? Well, if I show you the second graph here, this is actually a representation of data as well. What were the top 10 albums of 2018? Well, here they are. So why? And then you can start to make some assumptions or some ideas about why so much of the previous graph was R&B and hip hop. Okay. So how can you use it? Now, I'll be really frank with you guys. I developed this presentation before we were in a pandemic, and I often had to convince teachers a little bit that you could use this as a print resource or a digital resource. You did not have to have a phone. You did not have to have a computer. You could use it as a print resource for those of you, for instance, in a prison setting, or maybe where you don't have access to technology. These graphs can be printed. You could print them on a piece of paper and give them the same activity of a notice and wonder, and then come back and maybe outside of pandemic times, you could have a discussion in a group, right? This also allows current events to be brought in. So if you're teaching in a multidisciplinary classroom, or you're trying to bring multidisciplines in at the same time, you could be using this what's going on in this graph resource in your classrooms to help contextualize all of the content that you are going on. The link to the resource for the graphs, if you just type in NY times what's going on in this graph, you'll find it. Also, the link that I provided in the very beginning of the presentation, my rebranding link, directly links it as well. So you'll get all of that information in your email tomorrow too. So you'll have it all. This could be used like I'm doing it with you. This could be on a cell phone. This could be printed. Many different ways to use it. How do I import these graphs into Pear Deck slides? I use my snippet tool. If you're at all familiar with snippet, I use my snippet tool, or I link it directly. I'm going to take a screenshot. That might be a word you're used to. Also, for you, all those of you that teach more than math, What's Going On in This Graph has a sister site called What's Going On in This Picture. And many of my ESL teachers that I speak with, as well as my ABE and ASE instructors, really love what's going on in this picture. So check that out for those of you that teach in more than one discipline. This could be used live with student devices like I have done with you today. This could be used as a warm-up. This could be used as a springboard. It could be used as an exit ticket. It could be used as a speaking and listening activity. There are infinite ways to use this particular resource as we're going along today. Hey, thanks, friend. My friend Kate. I don't know you, Kate, but you're doing an awesome job of putting those links in the chat for me. Appreciate that. Pat on the back, friend. So second resource, here we go. I think this is my favorite one. I'm going to be a little partial here. This is called Estimation 180. This is intended as a K-12 resource, but this is one of those awesome gem resources that you can use in your adult ed student classroom as well. Again, it's free. If you Google Estimation 180, it'll come right up. It's teacher created. And here's where you put your student hat back on. What is the net weight of the candy bar? What is the net weight of the candy bar? No, it's not on the picture. What is the net weight of the candy bar? This is an estimation activity. Beverly, you must be a chocoholic like me. Not enough. Hey friends, if you make sure in the chat, if you want your comment to go out to everybody, you're marking all panelists and attendees. If you're in my Pear Deck with me, I've got about 32 of you. I'm going to show the responses. Thomas, I love your response. 8 ounces before I eat it. 190 pounds after I eat it. Ooh, 8 ounces. Ooh, I love this. Look at this. What is net weight? Yeah, what is net weight? 8 ounces, 4 ounces, 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 5 ounces, 1.5, 4 ounces, 15 almonds. I like that. 4 ounces, 2.6 ounces, 5 ounces, 2 ounces, about 1.2 ounces, 6 ounces, 5.5 ounces. Now right here, I can already see the range of where my students are with relative measurement. Right? I can, and guys, you have a tighter range than our students generally do. I get everything from 2 pounds to, 2 ounces when I ask this question to my students. Now, there is more than one, this is not the only question that you can ask as a teacher. You should also be asking, what would be too low of a guess? And what would be too high of a guess? What would be too low of a guess? And what would be too high of a guess? So I see the question, is this a regular or a king size? Well, is there anything in the picture that would help you determine whether it was a regular or a king size? Here's the responses. 5 too low, 15 too high. Oh, here we go. The almond and the tiles determine how large this is. Yeah, and it doesn't say king size. These are all great questions, guys. 2 ounces, 2 pounds. Half an ounce to 1 pound would be too high. Right off the bat, you are scaffolding for your students You're scaffolding for your students what is a guess that's too low? What is a guess that's too high? So then where does my guess fall in the middle of that? And as you share what other people's ideas are, what I love about Pear Deck is you can change your response, and it's anonymous. So you could technically put in one more and no one would know, right? So you've taken out this fear of being wrong. And also, if you've taught the concept of estimation, they understand also that then estimation is an educated guess. We are giving an about answer. So do you guys want to know the answer? Yes, Kathleen, you're ahead of me. Domain and range, what a great conversation starter. The answer is 1.45 ounces. Now, if I was in a physical classroom with you, I would hand you that candy bar for the closest guess, the closest estimation. I absolutely would, but we're not. So I will try and do a Willy Wonka thing and like pass it to you through the video. I don't know how many of you are getting that, but that's what I'm doing right now. I'm passing it to you. Can you keep the responses? Yes, Emily, yes, you can. So what I love about Estimation 180 is that this teacher, the reason it's called 180 is because theoretically in the K-12 world, you have 180 teaching days, and for most people do. And so he has developed one of these for every single teaching day. So what is the net weight of this candy bar? You could go ahead, if you know that this one is 1.45 ounces, how many ounces do you think this one is? Yeah, so I'll give you a couple seconds to respond. Part of what I love about Estimation 180 is that he has these series of estimations. So you can use them as a one, right? As a one activity, a quick thing. I have used this one in my presentation, but also I've used this one in my classroom as kind of a every day as they come in for the week. Let's do an estimation activity. Let's do an estimation activity. Let's do an estimation activity. I also love that a lot of his are themed too. So here, look at this, the way the Pear Deck is working here. This look familiar to any of you that are math teachers? You notice what's happening here? So this time in Pear Deck, in the Pear Deck add-on that I presented earlier, all the people that are responding right now, I asked them to respond with a number instead of text. And this is what it does for you. It creates this these interquartile ranges. And so you can see a graphical representation of the data that you're collecting for your students. How cool is that, right? Now, you might not want that, right? But here you go. You can automatically see where the students are. What is going on, okay? You can also see the range. Someone over here has guessed 7.5 and where the outliers are. And yeah, it's just an awesome teaching tool. So I'll give you the answer, 1.55 ounces. And then we can talk about difference. What's the difference in weight, right? And why do you think there's a difference in weight? I saw somebody somewhere in the chat or something said, well, this one is bigger, but it doesn't have any almonds. Do almonds make it weigh less? How much bigger is it really? Yeah, the picture could be deceiving, right? And it's still on the same tile. So yeah, you could create a stem and leaf plot. Okay. So as we are talking about estimation, you can increasingly, I constantly say to my students, use what you know to figure out what you don't know. So even if they didn't know that the one with almonds was 1.45, they now know that the one with almonds is 1.45. So they can make an even tighter guess. They can decrease their range and talk about what some of the other candy bars might weigh. So as we're going, the third one is 4.4 ounces for those of you that are taking this with a competitive edge and want to make sure you get your answer in. And then here's the last picture in the series, which is the instructor. And this is what I love about this picture. All the series of pictures have been with the tiles in the background, right? Until this one. This is the teacher holding that humongous bar, right? Mr. Stade, that's right, Mr. Stadel. Yes, Estimation 180. He uses references in life to help students estimate things in their life, which is what we all do. We all estimate. How do I know something is about a foot? Because I know what about a foot looks like, right? So we need to give our students references and contextualize measurement for them so that they can be better judges of when they're converting measurements, when they are using them in geometry problems, and when they're using them in life, okay? How big is this candy bar? It's 5 pounds. Yes, and you can buy it in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So if anybody's in Pennsylvania and wants to send me one, I'd be happy to accept that. I'm sure my children would love you too. How can you use it? So you could do it like we're doing with Pear Deck. You can present it live. You could print it out. You could print these pictures out even in black and white. Most of them work in black and white. Now there is a cool bacon one where it's actually a video, but so that one you might not be able to print it out. But the bacon one is one of my favorites too, but that one makes students really hungry. So don't use that one in the very beginning of your class in the morning. All right, who knows Dan Meyer? Okay, I don't know him personally, but who knows of Dan Meyer? Okay. ThreeAct Math. This is not a new thing, guys, but it's something that I realized very quickly that my other adult ed counterparts, they had no idea about Dan Meyer and ThreeAct Math. If you don't know Dan Meyer and ThreeAct Math, you can go, there are plenty of resources on my Padlet link that will get you to some of his resources, but also just an awesome math educator. He now works for Desmos, if you're familiar with Desmos. I want to model with you a 3-act math activity. So here we go. Put your student hat on. This is a video, and there's a question at the top. Which container will hold more popcorn? This video has no sound, so you don't need to worry about hearing anything. It is a visual experience. So here we go. The question is, which container will hold more popcorn? That's it. That's the only, that's all the video is. Didn't cut out. It's a 21-second video. Which one will hold more popcorn? Now, if you're following along with me in Pear Deck, you can choose A or B, or you can choose the same. You could also say the left one, the right one, okay? Here's our responses. This is a multiple choice question in Pear Deck, so you can see many people are saying left, shorter one, equal, left, left. No one's saying right? What? Oh, my students say right all the time. All right, Tom, are you saying right just so that you can be just the only one? So you can see live responses as we're going through with Pear Deck here as to what people think. So the purpose of 3-act math is to kind of take bites of the content and separate it to increase critical thinking as well as conceptual understanding of a math topic. So the idea here is that there's 3 acts. So that was the first act. I'm going to give you another piece of information, which is the second act. Same question, but here's more information for you. Same question. Which container will hold more popcorn? And again, you can poll your students and say, you're allowed to change your answer. Many students will automatically say, wait, what? I'm allowed to change my answer. We are encouraging thinking and problem solving to happen. And sometimes we have to change our strategy. And sometimes the more information we have, the better we can solve the problem. And that is what we are teaching here with contextualized math. So here you go. Which one? Yes, thank you. Which one? Oh, look. Now equal is still leading, but lots of people are saying the left. Yeah, it all depends on how you dome it at top. You know, a lot of students, it's eye-opening for them and they see this. And, you know, how often are you pouring popcorn into 2 containers to decide which one has more? But like I think my friend from Florida up there, Janaya, said she did it with her students and then they ate the popcorn, which is kind of gross from those nasty desks. But it gives them an engagement. It gives them access into the math so that we can expand upon it within the rest of our lessons. So here's the answer. Here's Act 3. I love that he eats the popcorn. It's like my favorite part. Were you right? Now, what I also love about this is that there's no number. The only numbers are the dimensions of the paper. So at the end, you can see that the pile on the left is bigger than the pile on the right. And actually, students have gotten into debates with me about, well, that one's more spread out, so maybe there's more. I think we need to count the kernels. And that's where Janaya comes in and you say, yeah, let's count them. Let's see what happens. Okay, so when you start to engage with the math and the problem solving, the numbers kind of come in as the information. I need more information to solve this problem. Yes, that's where math is in our life, right? Yes. So the answer is the left one. And if you plug in, if you're a formula person and you want to take the, yeah, I have students who say that too, Rob, it's rigged. Radius counts more than height because it's squared. Yes, absolutely. If you take the volume of a cylinder and you plug in those dimensions, you will find out that yes, the shorter one is the one that has more volume. But you can then start to talk about how are volume and capacity different, right? And it depends on what you're putting in there. Would there be more water still if you used water instead? Lots of conversation, okay? Lots of conversation about the problem solving and how you could use this. And Kathleen, I love your example in the chat about choosing the right container for dishes, for leftovers, because I hate dishes. So I don't ever want to wash one more dish than I need to. So I will always try to make the best judgment call on my Tupperware. All right. Here's another example of a 3-act math task. And this one is a different topic, right? This is percentages and coupons. Very relevant, especially in the season that we are in. Which coupon should I use? $20 off or 20% off? Yep. And most of you will say, well, Amber, it depends. But my students don't. My students tell me they have a feeling one way or the other right off the bat. Now, what if I tell you this? I think I kind of laugh every time I say percolator, because that sounds like a word my grandmother uses, or she probably still has a percolator, but this one's kind of funny to me. So which coupon would you use? 20% off or $20 off? And this is where you can start to engage students. This is the second act, right? So the first act is which one's the better deal? This is still which one's the better deal? Which coupon should you use? And I'll show you the responses of the whole 40 people that are participating. Everyone's saying $20 off. Yeah, that's like half the price. What about for the chair? What about for the chair? What's the better deal, $20 or 20%? Yep. Everyone always asks me, did you take that picture at Target? Because it looks like Target, if you're familiar with that store. And I say, I didn't take the picture. I don't know. They always have questions outside of the math, and that's okay. If I know the answer, I tell them. That's math. That's problem solving. That's real life, right? Yeah, 20%. What about the TV? What about the TV? Yeah, so right away we can start to talk about, so what's 20% of $1,499.99? And what's 20% of $139? And what's 20% of the percolator at $42.99? Why would I use 20% over the $20? And like you guys said right off the bat, I would use, it depends on the starting price. Well, yes, but then you get into the conversation about per 100, right? And why we use percentages and why percentages are used. And I love someone put Bed Bath & Beyond. Yeah, if you're familiar with Bed Bath & Beyond, it's do I use the $5 off or the 20%? Well, which way does it work out better, right? How can you use it? Again, you could print off the resources, you could print off those pictures, you could give them coupons, right? And say, what coupon are you going to use on this item? What coupon are you going to use on this item? Based and have a little bit of a role play there. What you could play the video with ThreeAct Math. Now, Dan Meyer's ThreeAct Math is so popular in the K-12 world that people have developed hundreds of other ThreeAct Math that are not done by Dan Meyer. So there are many, many, many websites out there that you can use in order to find ThreeAct Math. And what I love is that on this Rebrandly site that I shared with you right at the beginning, which I'll put that link in there again, are all of these things pinned, and there's even the spreadsheet here where you can type in a standard and it will link it directly to a ThreeAct Math task. How easy is that? That goes back to standards-based instruction, right? It's right here, and I'm going to actually type that link in again so you all can have it. Or here it is. I'll share it on the screen and I'll also type it in. So rebrand.ly/math resources 2019. Okay, that is the link that is to my to all of the resources that I've collected. All right, so let's move on to our last resource for today. Has anyone ever used Clothesline Math? The slide deck, Barbara, the slide deck is being sent to you in a follow-up email, which will have the link. So you will have all of these links, okay? You will have all of these links in a follow-up email. Clothesline Math, has anyone heard of Clothesline Math before? Clothesline Math was developed by Chris Shore. It's a free resource, as I said before, and it's called Clothesline Math because initially he literally used a clothesline. And here in my video, I'm showing you I had to go buy a clothesline. By the way, most dollar stores have clotheslines. I didn't own a clothesline until I needed this activity. So for $1, I walked out with my clothesline. It's much longer than I need. And if we were in person, again, I would put this up in the room and we would be doing this activity live. Let me give you a little bit of context as to why we're using a clothesline in a math class. Oops, there we go. This is a direct quote from Chris Shore, and in this case, I am going to read my slide to you, so you can withstand that for one time. The greatest tool for teaching number sense is the number line. The number line can develop deep, flexible number sense, as well as conceptual understanding of variables, signed numbers, rules of exponents, algebraic expressions, geometric relationships, statistics, and other key mathematical ideas. You are absolutely right, Heidi. They're not going to let you bring a clothesline, but I have other options for you. This is by Chris Shore. Using a number line is vital for our students at every level of math, not just at the beginning. Okay, I think I said I have two young children myself. They are using a number line every day. I don't use a number line every day with my adult ed students, but I do use a number line often, weekly at least. And for every level of math that I teach, I use number lines. So what is a clothesline math activity? It's a student or a group are given a set of numbers or expressions, typically a set of 2 or 3, which are written on folded paper to be properly placed on a hanging number clothesline. So I have these cards and I'll show them in my camera view here. This one is just, it says -2.9, and it's just a tinted piece of paper. Okay, the cool thing about the website, Chris Shore's website, is he already has some of these made up, and all you have to do is kind of print them and then fold them. If you're going to do it in a physical classroom, which is awesome, but I do realize that we can't all do that, okay? A clothesline activity kind of looks like this. So this is an example where usually one color represents your benchmarks. You can create whatever benchmarks you want. For instance, this one's 0, 1, and -1. If you're working with lower level students, maybe you want to stay on the positive side of the number line, whereas higher level students, you can expand upon that. You could use variables. You could use the number line. It's a kinesthetic way for students to engage with placement within a number line. It's also a way you don't have to be confined to numeric representations. You could use this also with fractions. So I'm going to show you this. It's a little bit hard to see, but there's a shaded portion of the card and there's a non-shaded portion of the card. And so you could use it to help students understand equivalent fractions. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways to use this, and I don't have too many minutes here to let you experience it. But the basic routine is that you place the benchmark cards on the number line. You have this set of cards, and then they add, move, remove, create the number line. What does it look like? Okay. Other students can create their number line on a piece of paper or a mini whiteboard. Okay, even if this is something that you can't do if you're in a virtual setting and you can't have a clothesline, okay, if you are presenting, you could have your clothesline and you could ask students to be doing it on paper. That would be an alternative. It's obviously not quite as kinesthetic, right, as every student working together and getting it there. I will encourage you to go straight to the website for the lesson plans and the resources, because I can't just send you them through the screen like I Willy Wonka that chocolate, right? But there are also answer documents, and I think these are really important, a really important part of this. It is not just about placing the numbers on the number line. It's also about reflecting on where you placed your number, why you placed it there, and explaining it to others, okay? And yes, Pear Deck also has an option for a number line. And I love Jamboard, Rebecca. That's what I'm using currently right now in a virtual setting. Let me show you how do we do number lines in a virtual setting. So there's two apps that I have found. One is this link. It's called apps.mathlearningcenter.org/numberline. Guys, it's right here. Online number line. There's also this zoomable number line that's on this particular website for you. So you can go to one link and get all of these links in one place. All right. So this number line allows for a lot of different options. You can change all of the numbers. You can add boxes. There's all kinds of options here with a virtual number line if you can't get a clothesline in a room, okay? Again, you can use this on printed out. If you need to print it out on paper, you can do that. Now, the link specifically for all these resources is here, rebrand.ly/math resources 2019. And I do continually add things to this. This is kind of my personal collection of math resources that I pull from. So it's something that I have modified to be able to share with you. And I hope that you'll find it useful as you're trying to get out of Worksheet Land and engage with your students in the math that you're teaching. Now, I've given you just a small taste of all of these resources, but I'd really like to know, here's my little poll question, those of you following along in Pear Deck, what activity are you most likely to use in your classroom? What's going on in this graph? Pear Deck, the Estimation 180, ThreeAct Math, Clothesline Math. Which one are you most likely to use in your classroom? So here's the graph that's going on Pear Deck. It's always interesting because every group that I talk to about this, they engage differently. And that's awesome, right? This is great. Thank you for your ESL teachers and you putting that in the chat, how you would use this in your ESL classroom. Sometimes I have teachers, ESL teachers that say, I don't know, I don't do math in my ESL classroom. And I say, well, let me show you how. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I hope that we have achieved our two objectives today. Determining math resources that are standards aligned. How can you do that? How do you determine whether this is not just a good resource because Amber said it is, but because it's standards aligned, right? And how can you, and then the 5 math resources that I gave to you, how can you use them in your classroom tomorrow or in the future? So you can find me at the email address on the screen. If you have any questions, I will be looking in the chat for some very specific questions that you have. I'm so excited to present for you today. And if you want to follow the presentation or follow the Illinois Professional Development Network, here it is. We are on Facebook and Twitter. There's my little plug. And remember to join Ann. Remember to join ANN. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Amber, that was a great presentation. Really fun, really interactive.
Thank you.
I want to just remind everybody that I just launched a poll. If you could just take a minute to fill that out. I see there's a lot of positive responses already, not surprisingly. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank you again, Amber. That was a really engaging, really great presentation. And the responses to the poll question really say so as well. So it was really great, and we appreciate it. We appreciate the time and everything you're doing in adult education. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure to present for COABE, and I'm so excited by all the good feedback in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have, and I look forward to hearing how you're using these great resources in your classroom.
Great. Thank you, Amber. And thanks again, everybody. I hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Happy holidays.